Suppose you've observed a suspicious-looking activity or person in your neighborhood, or you're worried about your grandbaby's living conditions. Who do you call? Chief Training Officer Diane McDermott, 911, PIO Daniel Hudson, Norfolk Police Department, and Ronald Williams, Supervisor, Norfolk Child Protective Services, can offer some guidelines for citizens who call in a report. And you get reports a lot. All of you know this in each of your respective areas, and people often will go to 911 for lack of knowing who else to call, even if it may not be a 911 call as you define it. Diane, what is 911 and how does that stand out from everything else?
Typically 911 we ask our citizens to use to report life-threatening emergencies, anything that's in progress that has the potential to hurt or cause severe property damage. Okay. We ask our citizens to call that number and report those things quickly. Okay. It comes directly in. We can screen the calls, pass the information off to our field personnel, and have field units respond as soon as possible.
Okay. So that really requires very quick action, and it also requires information to be quickly exchanged between the person calling in and the person receiving the call. So what kind of information would be the most common and most important to provide if you were calling in?
The most critical information that we need for any event that occurs in the city of Norfolk is actually where it is occurring at, followed by what's going on. With that information, my staff is trained to ask a series of questions, and based on those questions and answer period, we relay the information to our field personnel, which will help prioritize the event.
Okay, great. And up on the screen we have a list of some of the things that you would be helpful to provide, a type of emergency assistance needed, of course, and why, location, time, because it could have just happened, or maybe they just got to a phone. There may be descriptions of people and persons and
Correct.
what have you that would be important for people to look at. If you go online, you can actually see there's a diagram that shows you what to look for in terms of describing people, which can be very helpful because you may not look at the world the same way after you look at this chart. When to call it, of course, is life or death or life-threatening, and this is police, fire, or paramedics. So if it's happening to you, happening to somebody near you, you see something happening, this is the time to call it. But there are other times where you see something happening, but nothing has really, you think you're seeing something happening or about to happen, you're not sure, you're uneasy. You can call 911, but there are also some other options you can try, and that's the non-emergency line.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And the non-emergency line is something that, as a police officer, you probably have dealt with that and 911, and there is a distinction, but it isn't necessarily a distinction you make right up front.
Correct. And what we tell people is if they do not remember the non-emergency number, they always remember 911. Yeah. Just to trust their instinct. If they see something that doesn't look right, it doesn't sound right, it doesn't feel right, that gut instinct, then they need to call us, because that's what we're here for, is to respond to those suspicious situations. Okay. So whether it's the non-emergency number or 911, just call the dispatcher so we can respond out there. And what we'd like to inform people is that we want everybody to be safe. Don't put yourself in harm's way when you're trying to give us the information. But the more information that you provide to our dispatchers, the safer that we can be when we respond there. Right. And when we get there, we know exactly where we're going. So the way we train our recruits in our academy is to always describe somebody from the top down, meaning start from the hair, whether they're a hat or glasses, and then go down to the shirt, then if they have anything around their belt, their pants, their shoes. So if you just remember starting from the top down instead of, well, he had white shoes or he had black hair. Jumping around just kind of ruins the eye movement for you and keep it flowing relatively quickly. So the more information that you provide to the dispatchers, the better off we are when we respond to a scene.
Okay, great. Then getting back to non-emergency line, people call that because they do know about it. They will call and provide some information, and this may be acted on quickly or it may not be, because there's a way to determine, there's a screening method that is used.
Correct. Yes, ma'am. There is a screening method. Again, it's based on questions and answers my staff are trained to ask, based on criteria that we've worked very closely with the police department to develop. Okay. Based on those questions and answers, it will fit into probably one of about 200 and so event types. And then those event types are prioritized based on responses and things of that nature.
Okay. One of the things that is often asked, and this is true of Child Protective Services, and we haven't forgotten you, Ron, is that leaving a phone number or providing one is always helpful It doesn't mean that you have to provide your name or that your name will be used down the road, that you can remain anonymous, but if there's an additional question that needs to be answered, you can get in touch with that person.
Yes, ma'am. We try to ask everything that we possibly can. However, the officer that's responding may be familiar with that situation, the address, and may need some additional information. So they ask us to call back, which is why it's important that we try to get callback numbers for each citizen that calls in.
And basically not assuming that there's going to be some caller ID with a number that's going to reach the person who called in.
That's correct.
Right, so that's important. So these are real basic things, but if people are in a certain state of mind, they may not remember that that's it. But this is at least a way to kind of prompt you to think about what you're going to say and what can be most useful when you do make that critical call, or a call that may lead to something that is actually 911, because they can call either line and it can end up being one or the other. Depending.
That's correct. And the same questions will be asked on the non-emergency line as they're asked on the 911 line, just to make sure that we're covering all our bases. Again, our goal in emergency preparedness and response is to maintain the life and safety of not only our citizens in the city and our visitors, but also our field personnel that we support and their mission as well.
So it's more than just exchanging information. It's about lives on the line.
Correct.
Somebody that you're calling in about, as well as the people who are responding.
Yes.
No, hugely important. And with Child Protective Services, Ron Williams can tell us a little bit about what takes place when somebody calls our hotline with Norfolk. There are people who answer those phones. We do have a team that actually works those lines throughout the week.
Yes, we have a team. They are very skilled at interviewing and questioning. I would have to say, as stated before, the more information, the more objective information we can get, the better chance that we have of going out and identifying residences and what our jurisdiction is, and encountering and stopping situations where children might be in danger or at risk of some type of danger.
So this is also a situation where you have to screen these calls, and getting factual information or objective information can often be difficult in any of these cases. When people are calling in, they're generally not in a calm frame of mind, so to tell somebody to be calm when they're upset is hard, but it reduces the amount of time that information needs to be exchanged, which can speed up at least a way to acknowledge what is going on or whether or not it can be pursued. And in Child Protective Services, you have certain laws that you have to work under.
Well, we have very specific criteria that we have to meet. That is the reason for a lot of our questioning. We had to determine whether the situation happened in our jurisdiction. We have the right to go out and investigate and knock on people's doors and ask questions about things. Whether that we are talking about a person who was a caregiver, they had that type of power authority over a child at the time. Whether we're dealing with minors and so forth. So if you cannot be alarmed about the questions that we ask, they are aimed for us to ensure that we are dealing with something that legally fits the definition of abuse and neglect,
right.
Which is important in that we don't decide things. We access the legal system, and the judges make final decisions on removals and things like that.
Okay, so it's the judges that are making those determinations. You're following guidelines to elicit as much information as you can.
Absolutely. Very strict set of guidelines as to what information we have to have, what we legally can do in situations involving child abuse. Also, this is important to say, it matters a great deal that a person with the most direct information is the one that calls us. Sometimes events happen and one person tells another person, the other person calls us, but the other person isn't able to provide us with any of the details that we need in order to understand if we have the right to approach that situation, and or it is a situation that is us versus you really need to be calling the police about this. So we also, CPS begins as an an effort to protect a child in any situation where they're at risk or in danger. But because we have many other services within within our agency, we very much look to connect people with services that helps to restore their functioning if that's an issue, to provide housing and different things that that our agency does. So, CPS might be the way that you enter, the agency, but all things that we do are a possibility from coming in that way. So we very much begin with kids, but we intend to serve the whole family in any way that we can.
Wonderful. And all of you interact, of course, because there are cases that may require the presence of police before
Absolutely.
a CPS worker may come to a home. So a lot of these things are cooperative, and just keep in mind, factual information as factual as possible. Provide your name and a number. You don't have to be identified to everybody that is involved in it, but it can be anonymous. So don't let that stop you, but it's important to get the word out. Thank you very much. I know it's a ton of information and there's a lot more to be said, but thanks for giving us your perspectives on all of this. I learned a lot just listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, who said getting older can't be fun? The Red Hot Mamas show you how when we return.